Hey, what's up, everybody? Today I'm going to be unboxing one of my favorite shoes, probably of the last 10 years, the Nike Air Max 270. Before we get into the shoe itself, as always, let's check out the packaging. So, the 270 has a special package, not the typical Nike box. Some really nice graphics going on. I'm not sure if you can see, there we go, in the light there. This is a UV print. So this is actually a clear ink that's printed over top of the matte box, this gloss ink. And you can see every kind of logo from Nike Air over the years, Air Max 180, the Zoom Air, Total Air. I remember when this one came out in the early 2000s, this Air logo. It's kind of a nice little touch for the 270, like kind of marking the 270 as the culmination of all these different Air technologies. Pretty cool. Just it's a pretty clean, simple box, but just elevating it with that clear UV ink. Now, those UV inks cost money. It costs extra money to get this done in production. I've tried to do that before in the past. It can be a little bit challenging, but for a shoe like this, kind of a premium product, it's a nice little ad. All right, let's get into the shoe itself. So, as I was saying, this was one of my favorite shoes from the past 10 years for a lot of reasons. I mean, aesthetically, I think it's damn near perfect aesthetically, honestly. And that's, as a designer, I don't usually say that about a lot of things, but I just love this shoe. But then also just in terms of all the different manufacturing techniques, there's some tricky things here that they pulled off really well. So let's get the shoe out of the box. Get rid of this. So graphically, let's get this in here. Graphically speaking, there's some really nice things going on with this really bold blocking. This gives the shoe a lot of potential for color blocks, and there's a lot of different colors available for the shoe, but because of these strong graphical breakups, it can take a number of different colors really well. But that is, while you might be saying, oh, that's just a graphical trick, and I know a lot of other industrial designers are like, oh, shoe design is just, it's very graphical, it's very aesthetic. There's a lot going on to make this happen. So, take this line right here, a very simple kind of bold diagonal line. But what's tricky about it is it's going through multiple materials, and this is really hard to pull this off so tightly. So this is an injection molded TPU heel counter, right? And that is going across the midsole, this injection EVA midsole, right? So that has to be stock fit or glued in perfectly here. And then it looks like it's welded, or it might just be adhesive, but it's adhered to this new airbag that came out with the 270, this super large airbag. And notice how cleanly that lines up. This would be an opportunity for a little bit of a hole, or just things not perfectly lining up here, and that is just almost perfect. And then you're going from this TPU heel counter into this blow molded airbag that's really large, hard to control, and then into a clear outsole. So you're going across injection molding, blow molding, and a compression molded rubber, and everything is just lining up really beautifully. Some nice subtle things. Let's continue looking at the tooling before you get into the upper. Some nice subtle things in the sidewall here. I love this kind of creative use of texture. So it's a very subtle texture, this kind of rib texture. You wouldn't almost notice it from here, but I think it just gives it a little bit more refinement. It also, as you step down on EVA, it tends to compress and create these kind of little lightning bolts in the midsole, but adding a texture like this is going to help control that. And then it's just some subtle relief as we get into some flex notches here. You wouldn't think it, but flex notches like this make a huge difference in the feel of a shoe. You can see as I flex the shoe, it literally bends like that's a hinge here. And by relieving the material here, that's exactly what you're doing. You're creating a hinge. Flipping it over to the outsole, another great bold graphic. I feel like this is somewhat unexpected from the side of the shoe. The lateral side is very linear, very kind of swept back, and then this outsole is very organic, but I love the kind of the tension between those two different things. And you got this really bold graphical outline, and then some really beautiful sculpting going on here that, again, a little bit unexpected for the bottom of the shoe. Around the perimeter, you have these classic Nike kind of waffle shapes. So if you go back to some previous videos I did on the Presto and some other heritage styles, I talked about this waffle shape that's in almost every Nike running outsole since the 1970s, when Bill Bowerman created a shoe called the Waffle Racer. The Waffle Racer traction texture was actually molded directly from a waffle iron. And so you'll notice this square with a dot in it is on almost every Nike running silhouette for the past 30, 35 years, 40 years, I guess, going now. Very subtle branding on the outsole, which is kind of a surprise. The only brand mark we have is just one DeBoss swoosh on the outsole. No other branding. You know, you'd almost expect like a big like Air Max 270 here. And I love the restraint that they showed by not doing any of that. I might have given into that temptation. Let's roll up to the upper, because again, it's deceptively complex. A lot of different things going on here. So we have a real mix of different construction methods in the upper. This back heel is a traditional cut and sew piece of textile, but with some nice molding going on here. So this is probably some kind of a compression material beneath this. Probably feels too soft to be silicone. It might just be foam under there. And then they're compression molding that, and then welding on this tonal air mark. Again, really nicely done, really tonal. And then this Air 270 mark that feels like it's screened, not welded. So this is a welded piece of plastic, and then this is screened on. Branding onto the upper is welded. This whole part is one piece of 3D knit mesh. So going with some different bands of different meshes that are knit, which is really cool. I was working with this technology back in the really early 2000s. Oh man, I actually got to grab this shoe to grab it for you. Hang on 1 second. So this is the Track Dart, a shoe that I worked on in 2003, 2004. This was really, really early versions of engineered knit, similar with these kind of bands of knit. This outsole was designed by Ben Yoon, similar with, again, the little waffle textures picking up. But you notice just that, how these things they evolve over time. Not that the designers of the 270 ever even saw this shoe, but it's a part of kind of the ethos at Nike. Again, kind of welded logos, very rectilinear. Moving through the rest of the upper, so you have this stitched piece and this engineered knit piece. Almost everything else here is welded. So we have this little lateral support element here, which is just a welded piece, and then a welded toe bumper as well with a secondary weld for the logo. Nice little branding on the front there at the Max. Again, really surprised they didn't hit a Max down here, but they got a little one in the toe bumper. And then the construction of this upper is tongueless. So it's a little bit like wearing a sock. So you have this engineered mesh piece, and then you'll notice this zigzag stitch here. So this zigzag stitch is really intentional because zigzag stitches stretch. Like a linear stitch is very stable and stiff, but a zigzag stitch will give a nice little bit of natural stretch so you can get into that. Picking up the textile they used on the heel on what would be the tongue here. Little asymmetry there, which I really enjoy. As those graphics are kind of going across the shoe, they made this this cut and sew line also kind of go at it asymmetrically, and some nice little welded elements. You could have pulled this off basically without this cut and sew piece here, right? This could just fit like a sock basically, but this cut and sew element gives them a little piece where they can anchor these webbings, right? So they get the seam here by adding this piece, and in that seam, they could sew in these woven webbings, or sometimes these are called gillies for some reason. I'm not sure why. I never knew the origin of that term, gillies. But that gives them the ability to get some lacing in there. Medial side, very similar to the lateral side, just graphically these elements are moving across at a different angle. Branding's a little bit different on the medial side with the 270 and the swoosh a little bit back here. Well, actually, swoosh is the same, but the 270 is different. Everything else graphically is pretty much the same on the lateral and medial side. On the heel, again, we have this welded element, and then really nicely molded into the clear here is this 270 mark. And this transition is really handled well from this molded TPU to this blown airbag. It's pretty high quality. You could just barely make out a little bit of adhesive here. Do you see those little bubbles, those tiny little white dots? That's the adhesive that they use while they're bonding this clear part to this translucent part. It's never going to be perfect, but that's pretty dang close. It's pretty impressive, really. And you can, if you're in design, and you can kind of see some of these things, like I could see a little bit of mold release on this outsole here. That's just the release agent they put in to make sure that this doesn't stick in the mold. But other than that, this is a really cleanly produced product. Interior construction, kind of interesting. They have this, it's not like an inner booty, but there's this foam-backed heel cradle here. Yeah, there's a little bit more foam up here towards the top, which is going to give you a nice fit, right? So you're going to have this little bit of foam here, and then you're going to have the bulbous part of your heel down here, and that bit of foam is basically going to hold your heel down low, which is nice. And then giving you a little pull tab, because sometimes these tongueless shoes, right? That's like a sock fit. They feel really nice when they're on. They could be a little hard to pull on and off though. So little things like that make a difference. A couple of interesting things going on inside. I don't know if I'll be able to show you guys this, but there is this really interesting lining going on in here. Because there's no tongue, I can't really flex it out to show you, but it feels like a non-woven material that's just adhered to this engineered mesh here, giving it a little bit of reinforcement. It's kind of nicely perforated out. You can barely feel the transition. This material is so thin. You can barely feel the transition from this outer mesh that's showing to this little bit of lining. Really nicely done. And because it's all welded in here, one of the nice things about that, just because it's all welded, there's no seams anywhere basically from the midfoot forward. There's no seams other than right here. But that's pretty smoothly taped down inside. Yeah, just this one stitch line that goes all the way from the exterior of the shoe to the interior of the shoe. Which is nice. So not a lot of seams to irritate your foot. They should be comfortable to wear barefoot. But that's about it. That's the Air Max 270. Like I said, one of my favorite shoes from the last decade. Graphically, I think it's really bold and strong, but also from a construction standpoint, so many really cool things going on with this huge blow molded airbag and all these different kind of construction processes and materials that are really lining up pretty much perfectly. It's pretty rare that I see a shoe with this many construction techniques where everything just lines up so nicely. All right, I can't wait to rock these and wear them around. Hope you enjoyed the video. You know what to do. If you did, hit like, subscribe, share with your friends. Check out some of the other unboxing videos. I've gone through a bunch of Nikes. I've got a bunch of more different things coming up, so stay tuned for more. All right, have a good one.